In this presentation, we will set up inventory items within QuickBooks Pro 2019. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info. Here we are in the software. In the home page, we currently have the Open Windows open. By selecting the View tab and Open Windows, we're going to be entering inventory items. Remember that the inventory items are going to be the driving factor for us to be creating the invoices and the sales receipts. They're the things that are going to help QuickBooks to record the transactions, record the inventory and the reduction of the inventory and cost of goods sold, as well as the sales price when we have an invoice and a sales receipt. So in order to do this, there's a couple ways to get into the items. Note, you could go there from the home tabs over here. I tend to like to see the drop downs because no matter where I am in the system, the drop downs are always there. So I think of lists here and then go to inventory items or items here. So these are going to be the items, the major item that we're typically working with being inventory. So we're going to select items, and you'll recall prior to this we set up service items, and these are going to be things that we can include on the invoice, but they don't include inventory that we're going to have to track. Now we're going to add to that the inventory items. Now we could do this a couple different ways. We could select this item here and we could just go to New, and note that there's a drop up down here. It's a little hard to see, so once you get used to it, not too bad. But we have the drop up. We're going to select the arrow on the drop up. We're going to scroll up to the New and go to New, and then we'll add this, and this will give us a nice quick screen to add inventory items. It's defaulting to a service item. If we would select this here, we would want to go to an inventory item or an inventory part, and that'll give us the inventory item. You'll see that this screen is much more complex in that we're going to have the cost of the inventory and the sales price, as opposed to if we go back to the service item, we're going to go back up here, the drop down service item. We only have the rate here because, of course, that's all we need. We don't need to track inventory with a service item. So that's going to be the challenge for us, is to enter that. Now we're going to do this all at one time and enter multiple inventory items at one time. You would only need to do this when you start the company. Once it is started, you probably would only add inventory items on a periodic basis. So to do that, we're going to go to the bulk inventory entering screen. So I'm going to close this out, and I don't want to save this. The data has not been changed. Okay. And then we're going to go to the items down here once again. And instead of going to New, we're going to go to Add, Edit, Multiple Items. Multiple items at one time. It's going to be great. So we're going to select that item there. Now it's defaulting to the service item because that's what we put in last time. That's going to be this drop down. So we're going to select this drop down now. And we're looking for not the service items, but the inventory parts, the inventory items. So inventory items, I would call it inventory items instead of inventory parts, but that's what they call it. So we have the inventory parts. They probably have a good reason. Anyways, we have the screen up top. We want to format this screen as easily as possible for data input. So whatever format we have the data that we're going to enter into the system, it would be nice to have these columns set up in a similar fashion so we can just tab through it, enter the data. So what we're going to do then is customize these screens. So we're going to go to the customize columns up top. And once again, we have these kind of customized. These are the ones that are available. Once again, because we did this in the service items. These are the available, these are the chosen columns. So these line up to what's here now. These item name, sub-item, cost, sales price, and so on and so forth. So this is a little confusing because it's obviously a vertical listing of the horizontal listing here. So we got to kind of visualize that change. What we're going to do now is just use these arrows to either add from here to here or take away from here to here, and then these arrows to move up and down to position these items. So what we want to start off with is the inventory, the item name. That looks good. We're going to want the sales description though. I want to see the sales description. That's not there. So I'm going to add the sales description. We'll take the sales description and add it. So add that. And then I want it right under the item name, so I'm going to use the move up thing here, the move up button, to move that up. It's going to go up, 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 up. And I'm just going to go too far and then move it down 1. So I went too far and then I moved it down 1. So now we have the item name and the sales description. Then we want the purchase description, also not included. It's over here. So I'm going to select this one, add it, and then I'm going to go all the way up and then bring it down 3. So I'm just going to go up, 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 up. I'm going to go too far, and then I'm going to bring it down till it's after the sales description. So there it is there. Now I just want to move the cost up 1. So I'm going to take that cost. That's what I want next, because this is the order, the input screen that we're going to be looking at. This would be the order that we have the data in. So I'm going to pull that up once. I want to make the data input as fast and easy as possible. And note that if you're setting this up for someone else too, this would be the easiest way to do it too, right? We would set the screen up to make the data input as easy as possible, and then put someone in charge of, inputting the data hopefully as easily as possible. And then we've got the sales price. So we're going to take the sales price. I'm going to move that up. And then the next thing we want is the cost of goods sold account. So I'm going to take that. We're going to move that up. And then we want the income account. So I'm going to take that. We're going to move that under the cost of goods sold account. So I'm going to move it up 2 times. And then we're going to have the assets account. So that's down the bottom here. I'm going to move that up 2 times. And then we're going to have the sales tax code. The sales tax code is already here, I believe. There it is. Sales tax code. We want to bring that up under the asset account. So I'm going to say up, 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 up under the asset account. And then we want the quantity on hand. So I'm going to move that up. Quantity on hand under the sales tax code. There we have that. And I believe that's all we want. So I'm going to try to remove the rest of these and see if we can move forward from there. So I'm going to remove this, remove that, remove that, remove that. Total value might be, I'm going to remove it though. And then manufacturer's part number, I'm going to remove that. So this is going to be the essence of what we need in order to add inventory's information, right? We want the inventory name. That's going to be kind of like the default name. It could be a shortened name that we have for the inventory. And then we want the sales description. That's going to appear on the invoice. Then we want the purchase description, which will appear on the purchase order. And then we want the cost. We have to have the cost because we're going to be buying the inventory. So we're going to have the cost in order to, QuickBooks won't let us, in other words, do this unless we assign a cost if it's an inventory item. And then we're going to have the sales price. We're going to sell it for something, so we of course need that. We need the cost of goods sold account. What expense account are we going to expense when we sell this item? Cost of goods sold will be the expense account. And then the income account. What income account are we going to use to record this? We're going to use sales or revenue or income. And then we've got the asset account. What asset account are we going to use? Inventory. To decrease the inventory. And then we've got the sales tax code. It's going to have sales tax because it's inventory. So depending on the location we are at, inventory oftentimes, if anything is subject to sales tax or usage tax, would be the selling of inventory. And then we have the quantity on hand. And note as we do this, because we're going to record quantity on hand, we're actually going to record a journal entry as we do this data input. As we set up the system, we're going to add inventory. So we're going to say OK, and then we're going to go through this process and add the inventory items. Now, we're going to have guitars. So again, I'm kind of just listing basically guitars here. So these aren't actual prices of guitars, but we're going to list out the guitars and put the prices in. Now there's one other item we're going to want to put on here, and I'm going to go back to the customize columns up top, and we're going to add to this the as of date. So we're going to add to this the as of date. So I'm going to move this over, and that's going to tell us, when are we going to put this inventory on the books as of. Now we're going to start this system, this QuickBooks system, for the month of January 2019. And so what we want to do is put all of our stuff on the system, all the kind of the messy stuff we're going to do before that time period. So we're going to put this information as of December 31st, 2018. so that as of the first day of our first period that we will be working, 2019, everything hopefully will be set up nicely. So we're going to say OK. And now let's just go through these. And if my spelling is off or anything, hopefully I'll go back and fix it. But bear with me on this. The item name, we're going to see, this is probably the largest amount of kind of data input that we'll do for a while. We'll list out some of these items that we will be selling. So the first one's going to be, I'm going to list it and just call it an ELP. That's going to be the item name, just a short name that we're going to use, that we're going to know to be able to know which item that we are selling. And then in the description, we're going to fill out the longer description of what this piece of inventory is. This is an Epiphone Les Paul. And so we're going to say this is an ELP. It's an Epiphone Les Paul. When we talk about it in terms of the system, we're going to say it's an ELP. That's going to be what we call it in terms of our inventory item. When we list it out on the invoice or the sales receipt, it'll give the full description, of course, so that the client can see that. Now I want the same thing on the purchase description. So what I'm going to do is just highlight this and copy it. We can right click and copy, or just Control C. And I'll put the same thing here, Control V, or right click and paste. So that's going to be the same. And then we need the cost. I'm going to say the cost of this one is 400. So, and this is just, we're just kind of making these numbers up for the sake of the problem here. So 400 cost, that's how much we pay for it. When we buy it from the vendor, that's how much we pay for it. When we create a bill, basically, when we pay the vendor, we expect it to be $400. And then we're going to say the sales price is 500. So that's what we're going to sell it for. So we buy it for 400. We're going to sell it for 500. The cost of goods, the cost of goods sold account is usually given in the default as cost of goods sold, meaning when we sell it, we're going to record the expense of cost of goods sold at the point of sale. And that's a perpetual inventory system. If we hit the drop down, there it is. QuickBooks is already choosing that account because that would be the logical account to sell inventory. I'm going to select, notice I'm selecting tab. When I go through this, I'm going to hit tab. And now we're on the income account. QuickBooks isn't going to just give us the income account. They want us to select it. So we're going to select the drop down here. And we're going to go to merchandise sales. Again, these are all of our accounts. Notice they're in order: assets, liability, equity, income, expenses. We want the income accounts here. We want the merchandise sales. Now we could get more specific. We could call it an Epiphone sale. We could call it guitar sales versus other types of sales items. But we don't want to get too specific in naming our inventory accounts by the sale. If we have just a few things that we sell, we might want to name the specific item we sell, guitar sales or Les Paul sales. However, we can sort reports by the inventory item. So if we want to see how much revenue we made by item, we can do so. So we don't need like a whole lot of detail in terms of different revenue accounts if we have different merchandise that we are selling, because we can run other reports giving us that information by item. So just, you want to weigh out the pros and cons. Do I want a separate inventory account for every inventory item? How many separate categories, revenue account? Do I want a separate revenue account for every separate piece of revenue items that we sell? We could do so, but you need to balance that out with, the complications that go along with that. Okay, so then we got the asset account, and again, it's just going to choose to us the inventory assets, which would make sense because that's what the asset account will be when we purchase the inventory, and it's what will be decreased when we sell the inventory. Again, if we select the drop down, you can see it here. It's an other current asset account, inventory, that's the one. So then we're going to select a tab. The tax, we're going to say it is a taxable item. It is subject to sales tax. Typically, if we're in a place that is having sales tax, the merchandise is something that will be subject. Possibly the service items will not, sales or usage tax. And then the quantity on hand, we're going to say that we currently have 1. And that means that as we set this up, QuickBooks is actually going to put this in the balance sheet. And it's going to make a journal entry to do that. And we'll look about how QuickBooks does that, because it's going to be a little messy, because notice we're only recording inventory. We're not telling QuickBooks the other side. We're not telling QuickBooks, that's only a debit. Where's the credit? So we're going to have to see what QuickBooks does with this. Now we want the date to be not this date, but I'm going to put it in there. This wouldn't be too bad because we're going to start as of January 1st, 2019. But I want to put everything the day before. I'm going to put it in 12/31 12/8, the day before the time period we're going to work on. We're going to be working in 2019. I'm going to put this in there as of 2018. Why? Because I want all this messy stuff that QuickBooks is going to do to set up these opening balances to not be in the current period that we will be recording reports for. I want all the messy stuff that QuickBooks is going to do to set up the first account balances before the period that we're going to be working the books for. So ideally, you would like to do this and set this information up the month before, so that when you roll into the month that we are in, everything should be set up and ready to go. So that's going to be it. I'm going to hit tab, and that's going to bring us down to the next line. Okay, so I'm going to continue with this process. We're going to enter a few more pieces of inventory. So the next one's going to have this fairly long item name here. So we're going to put this item name. It's going to be an Epiphone Standard Pro guitar. And so I'm going to go ahead and copy that. Once again, I'm going to copy the sales description. Once you type that in there, I'm going to copy that. We could right click and copy. Put it right there on the sales description, right click and paste. And we're going to say the cost of that one is $480. It's a bit more of a expensive model, and it's going to be, we're going to sell it for $600. So we buy it for $480, sell it for $600. Cost of goods sold is the expense account when we expense it. The merchandise sales, I'm just going to type it in there and it'll just appear as we go. I'm going to say merchandise sales. There it is. The drop downs start to appear as we go, narrowing down. That's the one we want. I don't even need to click on it. I can just select tab and it'll go to the next one. The assets account is going to be inventory asset. So I'm just going to select tab. That's correct. The tax, it is subject to tax. So that's correct. So I'm going to select tab. With the quantity on hand, we're going to say that we currently have one of these in inventory at this time as well. Tab. And then the date, once again, 12/31/18. Notice I'm not putting any dashes or anything. I'm just putting 12/31/18. Once I select tab, it'll put the dashes, hopefully, and be at 12/31/18. So and then I hit enter to try to do. So there we have that. And note that when I selected enter, it actually defaulted to the current date here. So just be aware that that's going to be okay, because we're still going to be before the date and the point in time that we will be working at. But if you are entering this data and you started at a point after the point in time that you want to start recording information, then the setup process, it would be best. So for example, if you're working this problem and it happens to be at this point in time, January 15th, then you want to put this information in as of December 31st, before the time period that you're going to start working on the problem. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the next item now. So we're going to list out the next item. We have a couple more of these we're going to put in place. So the next one's going to be an Epiphone Riviera. Once again, once I have the sales description, I'm just going to copy that and put that in the purchase description, right click and paste. So we could just type in this information. We're going to fill that out as we go. And then we're going to select a tab. And we're going to put in here, this will be 440. And if the screen's a bit small to fill all this out, we should have a PowerPoint PDF so you can see this as we go as well, and see how to input this data. So then we're going to say the amount's going to be 440. That's the sales cost. Then we're going to sell it for 550. And then the cost of goods sold is correct, tab. The merchandise sales, we're going to type in merchandise sales, that's the one we want. The income account, tab. Inventory assets, correct, tab. Tax, we're going to have tax, that's correct, tab. And the quantity on hand for this one, we're going to say is 1. Once again, we got one of those. And once again, I would try to put it in there as of 12/31/18, the end of the year, 12/31/18, enter. And again, it might default it back once I hit enter, but if you're past the date period that you're entering, it should default in. And we'll go back also to where this will actually be recorded in the journal entry, and we can adjust that date there as well. So here we're going to put the next one in place. So this one, here's the sales item number. Here's what we're going to call it, a Steinberger solid body guitar. So we're going to copy that. Once again, I'm going to right click and copy, put that in the purchase description, right click and paste. And then that one's going to be 328. We're going to sell it for 410. Cost of goods sold is correct. We're going to say that the inventory income account is merchandise sales. And the inventory account, inventory asset is correct. Tax, okay. And the amount of those we have on hand is going to be, we're going to say one of those as well. And then on the date, we're going to put 12/31/18. Note on the slides, it might always be saying 12/31/20 because the slides we have, we were working in 2021. It's going to be our first year. We're going to put the work that we will be doing once again is going to be January 2019 is where we will start. So we want to put this the time period before that time period or some time period before the start of the period that we will actually be entering data in for. In meaning data that's current. This is going to be data that's kind of like the starting or the setup data. All right, next item. This one's going to be at Gibson, USA. So I'm going to copy that, right click and copy. We're going to put that here. So we want to type those items in. And the amount or the cost for that's going to be 304. It's going to be 380 sales, cost of goods sold. That's correct. I'm selecting tab, merchandise sales. We're going to just type that in there and tab. Inventory asset, that's correct. Tax, correct. The amount of those is 2. We have 2 of those. Tab, and then we're going to put that in there as of 12/31/18. And tab. Okay, so there's going to be one more we'll have here, and that's going to be the Epiphone semi hollow body. So that's going to be our guitar here. So we're going to copy that once again. We'll copy, right click and copy. Put that here, right click and paste. And then we're going to say that this one is 320. So 320, the sales price 400. So, and then we're going to say that the cost of goods sold is correct. And then merchandise inventory, or type that in there, merchandise inventory, tab, inventory asset, that's correct. Tax, yes. And we're going to say that we have 2 of these. And once again, I'm going to try to put it in there as of 12/31/18. Tab. Okay, so this is going to be the information we have. Hopefully we have everything as we need in there. If not, we can always go back and we'll see how this will be journalized and entered, and then we can go back and take a look at it. So here it is one last time. I'm going to scroll through it slowly so you can see the screen if this is where you're going to enter the data from. So this is the information, slow scroll. It's nice information, nicely formatted and filled out. So you want everything to look something like this, or exactly like this, if we're going along with this problem. And that'll be it. Then we're going to just go ahead and save the changes. So let's save changes. So that'll be down here at the bottom, blue button. We're going to save those changes. And there we have it. And so there it is. And for some reason, these ones, they kept the date at 12/31. And because I hit enter up here, it changed the date to 9/19. Let's go and see what happens in terms of a journal entry when we do this. Note, when we do this, oh no, it changed it. It changed it to 9/19. Okay, and again, that's because basically it won't allow me to enter a future date now. It will typically allow us to enter a past date, so we should be okay. But let's take a look at where the journal entry will be. Note that we're actually putting these on hand, so QuickBooks is going to have to put this into inventory in some way. And then it's going to have to make a journal entry in order to do that. So let's see what it does. So to do that, we're going to go to let's start with the reports. We'll go to reports up top. We're going to go to company and financial. And we're going to go to the, let's start at the balance sheet. We'll go to the balance sheet standard. Okay, and then we want to make it for 12/31/19. That's going to be the end of the year that we're going to be working on. And you'll see there's our inventory part that it created for us. And you might say, well, how did it do that? And of course, the way it's doing that is it's adding up the inventory parts that we have on this list. So I'm going to go back to the open items over here. If we go back to this list, we're saying it's taking the cost of the inventory that we have, not the sales price, the cost, multiplying it by the quantity. And that's how it's going to give us it's calculating what should be in inventory in terms of dollars of inventory. If we were to see this calculation in Excel, of course, we'd say we have one of these ELPs, so it's $400 cost that we have. We've got one of these listed names at 480. We've got one of these at 440. We've got one of these items at 328. And then we've got two of these items. So that adds up to 608. And then, of course, we have two of these items at 320, which is 640. If we add all those up, it comes out to 2,896. That's in essence what's happening. It could be $1 off because of rounding. So if we go back to our system over here, if we go back to the financial statements, go back to the balance sheet, we got the 2,896. Now, if we double click on this, we use the zoom. You see the Z there, that's the zoom function. If we double click on this, then it'll give us detail, but it's only giving us the detail for this one date. So I'm going to bring this all the way back to January of 2018 so I can see everything I have there. 010118 tab. And if I do that, then it's showing me all the detail, and it did enter it. Entered it in there as of 12/31/18. So that's what we wanted it to do. So everything was entered as of 12/31/18, and that's what we were looking to happen. Here's the detail. If we select any of that detail, say I want to zoom in on that and see what it does, we're going to use the zoom function. Double click on that, and it shows us the inventory item. It doesn't go back into that bulk screen to enter the inventory. It's going to show us basically the one-by-one inventory item, and you'll see that it's indicated the other side is going to opening balance equity. That's an indication that this was the first journal entry we entered, and QuickBooks kind of forced it to work by going to opening balance equity. So let's close this back out. And so that's going to be the inventory items amounts there. I'm going to close this. The other side, how are we in balance? And you'll note that the other side's in opening balance equity. And that's that account that we don't really know. I mean, it's not really a real account. That's like a QuickBooks account. And QuickBooks is basically telling us, hey, we forced this to put it in equity so that we can enter this information without making you enter a journal entry. That's basically what happened. So we're going to have to adjust that at the end. We'll probably just adjust that to whatever equity account we're using. In our case, it's probably going to be a capital account because we're a sole proprietor as a company to retained earnings. But in any case, this is okay, but you'll see this is kind of messy. This is what we had to do to set things up. That's why we want to set it up as of 2018, make any adjustments we need to so that as of the beginning of the period we're working on, 2019 is when we start operations, then all the kind of messy setup stuff should be done and we should be able to go good and be good to go forward from that point in time. Now let's imagine that we did mess up the date here. Something went wrong with the date and we wanted to fix it. We could just go to, if we double click on this again, of course, and then change the date to 2018. So we're covering the period that we are in, 2018 to 2019. So I just changed the beginning date and I select any of these items, then I could go through each of these and change the date. So if this date was wrong, if it's in the current period, and I want it to be prior to the current period we're working on, we can change it here. So I'm going to close this back out. One other place we might want to find this just to see what is happening. I'm going to close this and say no, and I could say do not display this message in the future. Okay, and then go okay, and then we could go to banking up top, use register. And then we're going to go to this drop down and we're going to look for the inventory account. This is going to be this item, and OK. And this will show us, it's kind of like a journal entry, but it'll show us these transactions in a register format, as we might see or be used to seeing a format like a checking account register. And once again, we could change the dates here if we needed to, if the dates were incorrect. If we select any of these items, it'll actually go to that same entry screen that we had before. So I'm going to close this out. So those are a couple different ways you can go in there and fix things if you need to fix them as we do the setup process. And one of the things that often needs to be fixed is the date. Now you'll notice that the cost of goods sold side, if we close this back out, the cost of goods sold side that we entered, I'm going to go to the item screen again. Here we go. Well, the cost of goods sold that we entered there are not showing up. And why aren't the cost of goods sold there? Because they're not going to be there until we sell the item. They're going to be on the income statement at the point of sale. So the cost of goods sold item will be necessary. We will need that, but it's not going to be necessary until we sell the item, and then QuickBooks will record it being triggered by the creation of the invoice or the sales receipt to record both the reduction in inventory and the related cost of goods sold to it. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info.